Hi. What does God mean to you? What does God mean? When you think of God, what is your experience of God being? Your own personal experience. Do you know what I'm asking? I don't mean what somebody told you God is. For a long time, I walked around with an idea of what somebody told me God was. For a very long time. I was 41 when I realized God is love. Actually, I didn't know. I didn't know. I grew up in a Christian home, extremely religious. I mean, my social life was pretty much church. I didn't know. And God loved me until I was 41. I mean, that's a lifetime. I mean, any number of years is a lifetime, depending on how old you are, of course. We know this, but you know what I mean. It's a lifetime. It's like, for all of the time, I didn't know that I was loved by God. Life got considerably more interesting when I realized that I'm loved by God. Much more interesting. I was just like, well, this changes everything. It was a moment like that I had. It changed everything when I realized I was loved by God. And for years, I was so disconnected from from a God concept that I wouldn't want to talk about God. I always found myself talking about God, but it was always linked to a church or something like that, religion. And that had left a very bad taste in my mouth because I hadn't found that space to be very conducive to what I felt, I suppose, something loving would feel like. It didn't feel like that to me at all. Lots of rules and regulations, but lots of low vibrational ways of being with one another. People didn't treat people very well. Lots of levels of popularity. I mean, it sounds so petty to say popularity, but yeah. Who's the better family? I mean, what does it sound like, a soap opera? That the church space that I came from felt like that. Competitive. To be the best. And the things that you are measuring yourself by are just fully societal standards. Nobody's measuring how loving somebody is. I haven't seen it. It's very much about getting ahead. Look, I haven't been in that space for many years of my life. I left in my early 20s because of the way that left me feeling. And many years later, I suppose through my own spiritual exploration, I come across mechanisms. I do a lot of meditation. I meditate for about an hour a day now. Because what I realize is God's love is ultimate. It is the ultimate gift. There's nothing better than God's love. Nothing compares to God's love. It changes you from within. Once you're touched by it, and you've experienced it, but you have to have it's like you have to have this one-on-one experience with God and allow life to let you have those experiences. When hard things happen, allow it to bring you to God. It's what the tough stuff of life is supposed to do for us. If we allow it, and as opposed to burying it or ignoring it or not acknowledging it, allow it to make us grow, to evolve. And in this moment of evolution, you come into closer contact with God. I believe it. And then it's funny because I always thought that it was boring. I was like, this God stuff. I'm just like, what? These church people and the bad attitudes and all of this stuff. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand it at all. My story was I went on a plant medicine journey. And on the journey, I realized that love and forgiveness were the things that mattered the most. The next day, I came home. And I was in stillness. I was alone. And I had this clear download. It filled every part of my being. I just knew that God loved me. And it was funny because I didn't know. It's like I hadn't known love before that moment. I cried so much. I was so relieved. I was so relieved that this had happened to me, because it's like I just knew that it was going to change my life forever to feel that kind of love. And it has. It's almost like from that moment onwards, things just started getting really intense. But my life is changing for the better, and it's not easy, but it's changing for the better. And it's like the thing that I hold on to is that feeling of God's love. And sometimes you feel it more than other times, but it's like that feeling of almost being in God's love is a state that we can work towards embodying as a standard. The feeling of being in God's love. There's nothing more spectacular than being in God's love, actually. And so, like, levels of exploration, I think, are required, to find out more about God and be curious in ways that you've never been curious before. God is a lot more exciting. God is exciting. God is everything and in everything, and which means your exploration of God can happen just in this moment. Every moment is a moment where you can be experiencing God, and it's the moments especially, as opposed to going to a place of worship, let's just say once a week. That's religion. What I'm talking about is spirituality. I'm talking about having this constant walk with Great Spirit, to be in communion all the time, to be checking in, simply because you don't make a move without it. And when you start seeking God, you really start on a spiritual journey, and I don't think there's any greater healing than spiritual healing. Not in my experience, in any case. And so, with love I go. I'm sending a lot of love to everybody. We are in interesting times. Loving yourself properly is a pretty damn good place to start trying to heal the world. Sending so much love.